each one of these hosts if you're not sure where it came from. And just by looking at these, you might be able to, the actual host names themselves, you may know what they are. I think these are all my updates that are happening through the software updater, so that's I don't recognize any of these. So that's how to use netstat. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. I hope you guys can basically understand what netstat does. It's a very simple command, but it's very useful in a lot of circumstances. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you guys soon. Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about hosts briefly. So in terms of our local host actually. So there's two parts to this video. The first we're going to cover is the hosts file, and we briefly touched on that in a previous video. I think when we were deploying I think our Meteor application with Apache 2, we went into our hosts file to create some routes for the application. So basically the hosts file is in etc/hosts. So we can go ahead and open that up. Just type sudo nano /etc/hosts and hit enter. Put in your password. And this is our hosts file. So we actually did, we were in here for app.localhost, subdomain and Python. So the virtual hosts and Python deployment and the Meteor deployment, we were in here. And I didn't really explain to what extent you can use this file. So as I explained in the networking introduction video, a DNS server basically holds records of what domains point to what IP addresses. Think of this file as an internal DNS lookup functionality. So when I go to app.localhost, the first place my computer checks for a route is the hosts file. If it doesn't find an entry for a domain in the hosts file, then it goes out to the router and then your ISP and then a DNS server, and it checks there if there's any records for it. So by adding entries here, we can actually override default behavior of known domains that we want to change. So what I'm going to do is open up Firefox here for a moment, and I'm going to go to a website that will allow us to get the IP address of google.com, because we're going to be using that. So I'm just going to go to network-tools.com, and I'm going to type in here google.com. And we can see that this IP address is the one we are looking for. So I'm going to copy this here, and I'm going to jump back into this file. Now, this file can take 3 columns, and we've only discussed 2 so far. So let's go ahead and cover all the columns here in great detail. So the first one is the IP address that we want to route to. The second column is going to be the domain or the host name that we want to route to that. So let's just type in go.com. And then the third column is an alias, so we can just type go. And so when we save this file, what we're going to see is when we go to go, it's going to go to google.com, and their servers have actually they're not okay, so they're doing a lot of internal routing there. Let's try YouTube. So what we're going to do again, we're going to get actually let's try something that we know is going to work. So I'm going to just type in my own server name here. I'm going to grab that IP address, jump back into our hosts file, I'm going to paste that there. Now I'm going to save this again and go to go.com. saying it's not found. It's weird because this just worked. Alright, so I just had to restart Firefox here. This is the default server page, the root page for my server. If I were going to server.pointybracket.net, and I actually get the exact same page. And so what I can do, I believe, is access the routes on the server as normal, and it works. So what we're doing, as you can see, is we're just setting DNS records internally for this machine that it looks at before it goes out to get the correct DNS information. So again, I'm going to go to network-tools. We're going to try with like, let's try and find Joe's Pizza, a website for them. There we go. So let's see if this will work. This is the IP address I'm getting. So I'm going to check if that IP address will route to the website as well. No, but it routes to this page. So this is the page we should see after we paste this into our hosts file. So let's go ahead and save. And then let's go to go /. No, let's close this. And there we go. And so you can see how this works is basically it routes to whatever we want to route to. So you could create shortcuts for your favorite websites, with the exception of Google. Google does a lot of internal routing and stuff. And sometimes this will work, sometimes it won't. It all depends on how the web server is set up. Usually though, I just use the hosts file to set domains to go to my local host, and that's for when I'm developing something that a URL needs to be set with. So if I'm developing a WordPress site on my local machine and I need to set a URL in the WordPress configuration, I would configure a domain and then point that to my local host. So that is the hosts file. Let's exit out of here. I'll close this. I'm going to clear that. So now our host name. A host name is basically a name of machine, and in this instance ours is called Voltron, and we can see that because we've got this right here. So you can use the host name much like the same way you can use custom hosts that you set. So I can just go to Voltron and it's going to route to my Apache default page. Now you can also update the host name, and we need to do a couple things in order to do that. So first we're going to run the command sudo hostnamectl set -hostname, and then whatever host we want to name it to. So Megazord. Now we need to edit the hosts file to update our host name here as well. So we're going to replace Voltron with Megazord. I'm going to save this and close it. And then we're going to run sudo service hostname restart. There. It said it failed to restart the hostname service, but it looks like its working hostname is now set to Megazord. And if I were to close the browser and reopen it, I should be able to go to Megazord / and it does in fact redirect me to my default Apache 2 page. And so that's what a host name is and how to change it on Ubuntu. You could also change it through the system settings, but we're not going to go through a GUI way to do this right now. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys found this informative. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. Otherwise, I'll see you guys soon. Hey guys, we're about to talk about the traceroute command and what it does and why you'd use it, but first we need to install that program. So just come along with me, run sudo apt-get install traceroute, and it's going to fetch that from the repositories and it's going to install it for us. And when it's done, we can run the command. So run traceroute, all one word, and then the domain that you want to trace the route to. And it's going to spit out every server that the request jumps from and to in order to get to Google's server. When you see 3 asterisks, it means the request has timed out on that server, so it's going to try another one. There we go. So let me make this a bit bigger so it might be easier to read here. All right. So we can basically trace what servers we are communicating with in order to get to google.com. So when I type in google.com into my browser, it doesn't just go from my router. The request doesn't get sent automatically right to Google servers. What happens is there's a lot of intermediary servers in between the two, including your ISP, the DNS servers, and then other servers that need to be hopped to in order to get to Google. And so this is what we're seeing here. The first request, this is the IP address of my router, and this is the length of time that it took to get there. What happens then is this address is where this goes, and you can see each address as we go down gets a bit different because we're going to a different part of the world, and the host name will show if it's available too with the IP address in brackets, so we can see this is my ISP and this is one of their servers that my request has to hop from in order to get the information required to get to google.com. So I'm going to try it with my own server here. So I'm just going to type trace route pointybracket.net. And we can see that it's accessing different servers in order to get to where it needs to be. So in here we can see 2 interesting things. First of all, my internet service provider, and second of all, my virtual private server provider. And I'm not going to point those out, but we can see that, and then we can see also everything in between that holds information about the route that our request needs to take in order to get to that server. So that's how to use trace route, and that's why you would, is just kind of to, trace the route of your request to different servers. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys again soon. Hey guys, welcome back. This is the last video in the networking module. I just want to give you guys the tools you need to further your knowledge of networking in general and how networking tasks would be performed on Linux. And so there is one more tool that I want to introduce you guys to called Nmap. So Nmap is an abbreviation for the term network mapper, and it's an open source tool that can tell you what devices are on the network, what IP addresses are in use, and what services each machine is offering. So let's go ahead. We need to install the tool. So let's run sudo apt-get install nmap. And it's going to download about 3 megabytes of data, and it's going to expand to 18 megabytes. All right, now that this is installed, the way we're going to use this is by simply typing nmap, and then we can do a bunch of things after this. So the first thing we're going to cover is how to scan a specific IP address. And so I want to get the IP address that I have, so I'm going to run ifconfig, and it's 0.100. So nmap 192.168.0.100. And we can see what ports are open. Well, we can see what ports are available, their state, and then also the service that they provide by name. So I have Apache installed on this machine. You guys should have it installed on yours as well if you went through the Apache videos. And so you should see the same thing here. And so the port is 80. The state is opened because we've got Apache running right now. It automatically runs when you start up the machine, and the service that port provides is HTTP. So if I were also running an SSH server on this machine, you would see another entry in this list for port 22. It would say state open and service SSH or something to that effect. Now if we want more information, we can run nmap -v and then the IP address again. So 168.0.100. -v means verbose, and what verbose mode does in most applications is it also, aside from the regular output, it also gives you more direction on what's happening in the application, or provides more information than you would normally get. And so in this instance, we see that it's doing a bunch of scans. It scans the IP address then for 1,000 ports, and it finds all these ports that are open, and then it also finds a bunch of closed ports listed here, 996 closed ports, and it gives us the same output as before. So that's neat. I only have one device on my network actually, except for my router. Now my router, I believe, is 192.168.0.1, or it's .2.1. No, it's .0.1. All right. So that is the IP address of my router. So what we can do is we can scan multiple IP addresses at a time in multiple ways. So the first way that we're going to do is by specifying each IP address. So let's go ahead and run nmap 192.168.0 dot, and then we're going to add the last values in here separated by comma. So first I'm going to scan my machine as well as the router, and if I had a network address of 192.168.0.10, I could also do that, but I don't, so I'm not going to. Now what we see here is this right here would be my router. We can see this is the IP address for it, and this is what ports that it offers on which, or this is what services it offers on which ports, and then we get my machine right here that provides the same output as it does before, but this is how it would output multiple machines scan results. Now you can also scan a range of IP addresses. So let's go ahead and run the nmap command again at 192.168.0.1-100. This is going to go from 1 all the way to 100, and it's going to scan all IP addresses within that range. So if I had a bunch of machines on my network, which I actually do, I have my phone on that network as well, and that's it actually. So I've got my router, my computer, and my phone. My phone is not it's not coming up, so I'm just I'm not doing anything on my computer right at the moment. I'm just checking what IP address I have on my phone here, if I can find out how. Okay, so the IP address on my phone is .101. So what I'm going to do is run the previous command and just have it scan from 1 to 101. We should see 3 machines come up. I don't think my phone has any services or open ports that it would list, but let's have a look here. And when you scan multiple IP addresses, the more you scan, the longer it takes. So, no, okay, so there's nothing available for my phone coming up. Now you can also scan, so when we talked about IP addresses, whoa, 192.168.0. We discovered that you can use anything from 0 to 255. So if I were to want to scan all IP addresses that begin with 192.168.0, I could then put this in here, right? But rather than doing that, we can actually use a wildcard here. And I'm actually going to cancel out of this because it's going to take a while. So now you don't only have to scan devices on your local network, you can also scan external IP addresses or host names. So I'm going to scan my server here by typing nmap and then the host name of my server. It's going to take a moment. And I've got like a lot of open ports just because I have so many different things running. I've got there's a lot of things that run on it, and some things that I just set up that I've never really used, and I haven't bothered to shut them down. And so what we get here is my host, and we can see that I've got FTP, SSH, SMTP. We've got the standard domain and HTTP, POP3. There's a bunch of stuff here, and I'm not going to go into what all those are, but we can see that these are everything that the server has. Now you can also set a file. So let me clear this. Let's open up gedit. So we're going to create a file of hosts that we want to regularly scan, and this can save time when we scan them if you've got like a few hosts that you regularly check on. So I'm going to put pointy bracket .net 192.168.0.1 and 192.168.0.100, and then I'm going to save this as networks.txt. So what we can do there is we can type nmap -il, so it's a lowercase I and a capital L, and then the location of that file. So it was networks.txt in my home directory. And it's going to scan each of the hosts that is in that networks file. And it returns in the order that they were scanned in. So that's pretty neat. I want to go over a few more things with you guys regarding this command. It does get pretty big. There's so much stuff that you can do with this, and so I really urge you guys to go and explore this if networking is one of your interests, if you want to really follow that. One of the things that I want to show you guys is how we can turn on OS and version detection during the scan. And so what we're going to do is type nmap -A 168.0 to 100. And this is going to scan, there. I had a little typo in the IP address there, so I had to just fix that. So this should tell me the operating system and versions that are running on the devices on my network, and you can also find this information about other hosts. Aside from this, just while this is running, you can scan a network and find out which servers and devices are up and running by using the flag -s capital P. You can display the reason that a port is in a particular state by adding the flag --reason. You can choose to only show open ports, which appears to be the default functionality here. It doesn't show the closed ports. You can actually also show all of the host interfaces for a machine by typing --iflist in the list of arguments for this command. And I mean, it's really big, so go ahead and look this up. Just if you want to type in google.com nmap commands, there's a bunch of different ones that you guys should probably play around with. This was more of an introduction onto the most common or basic functionalities of this program. And actually, I'm going to cancel this here. And I'm just going to restart this so it'll go a bit faster. I'm just going to target my own IP address here so that we can get this done. And you guys can see the example output that this is going to do when adding the -a flag in here. So here you can see a lot of information about this machine. So let's go up to the top here. We've got the port, the state, and the service, as well as the version of the service. So I have Apache 2.4.12 installed, and that's also the same one here. And if we go down, we get more information about the host itself. So we have OS is Unix. We've got the computer name, the domain name, if any is configured, the fully qualified domain name, and just a lot more information. So that is the nmap command, and it would be useful if you're trying to just scan your network. One of the examples that comes off the top of my head that would be, when I would use this command is if I notice that the internet's running a bit slow. Let's say I've got 10 people in my house and half of them may or may not be using the internet, and I want to see how many people are online. This is what I would do in that instance. Or if you want to check how many machines offer a certain service, or what the IP address is that you need to use to access a certain service on another machine, this would help you figure that out. So thank you guys for watching this video. We'll see you guys again soon. Hey guys, in this video it's all about SSH. So first, what is SSH? It's an abbreviation that stands for Secure Shell, and it basically allows you to access the shell or the command line of a remote host that has an SSH server set up. And so in one of the previous videos, I connected via SSH to my own server, and so I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So the way to get connected to a remote host through command line is using the SSH command, and then the only argument it's going to take is the connection string. So in this case, it's my username on my remote host and then the remote host. So I can use this or any other domain name that points to that server, or I could use the server's IP address. And when I hit enter, it's going to ask for my password on that machine. So I'm going to put it in. And you're going to see that the prompt is going to change. I've actually got this machine named the exact same thing as I have my server name, so it's Nick at Voltron here, and I'm on my local machine. So if I were to go to var www HTML, and then run the ls command, I'm going to see that I've got a lot of directories here actually. And a lot of these are actually unused in old projects that I worked on. But anyway, basically once you get connected, all the commands are the exact same because it's essentially just a remote Linux shell. So I could return to my home directory and then list those files, and you'll see that again I've got just a bunch of random files. So that is how to connect to SSH. When you're done, just type exit and the connection will be closed. So that was a really short video. Just to recap, how to get connected is type SSH, your remote username at the name of the remote host, and hit enter, and it's going to ask for your password. So thank you guys for watching this video. In the next video, we're going to be going over some SFTP, which is a bit bigger. Hey guys, let's go over some SFTP. So first, what is SFTP? Well, first, before we answer that question, let's ask a similar but different question. What is FTP? So FTP is an acronym for the term File Transfer Protocol, and it uses the port 21, and basically what it does is it transfers files between two machines. So SFTP, because in regular FTP, everything is transferred in clear text. So if anybody's sniffing packets on your network, like we learned in a previous video, they would be able to read all those packets, basically. So we're not going to use FTP. I actually recommend never use FTP. SFTP is just easier anyway, and so we're just going to use SFTP. So similarly to the SSH command, you're going to write SFTP and then the connection string. So in my case, it's exactly the same as before. It's going to then ask for my password for the remote host, so I'm going to put that in here. And now I can list what's on the remote host by typing ls, but we also have a few different commands to list what's on the local host. I'm actually going to exit here. I'm going to make a directory called SFTP demo. I'm going to change into SFTP demo, and I'm going to touch a file called names.txt. Now I'm going to reconnect while in this directory to my server. Now if I run ls, I get the remote directory's current directory listing. If I type lls, I get the local listing of the directory that I'm in on the local host. And so here we can actually we can grab files and transfer them to and from both machines. So if I wanted to put names.txt onto the server in the current directory, what I would do is type put names.txt, and it's going to upload it to my remote host with the same name. So that's when you would use put if you want to push a file from your local machine to the remote host. Similarly, you'd use the command get to get files. So I'm going to I really don't recall any of these files. I'm just gonna get the composer.json file. So I'm going to type get composer.json, and if I run lls on my local machine, I now see that I have that file there. So if I exit and then run ls, I've got that file there. So that is how you would use SFTP to transfer files to and from machines, and also a few of the commands there that can help you see what files are available. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys again soon. So the last video that we're doing is setting up an SSH host on our local machine, and it's really simple. So let's go ahead and open up Terminal. we need to install OpenSSH server. So go ahead and run sudo apt-get install OpenSSH-server, I believe it is. We'll get an error message if that's not it. It's been a while since I did this, so. So now, once we have it installed, you're basically good to go. However, we are going to make it a little more secure. We're going to change the port that this runs on, and so there is an sshd config file now. Let's go ahead and run sudo nano. It's in etc/ssh/sshd_config, I believe it is. There it is. So we can go ahead and make this more secure by changing the port and also changing the authentication stuff. So let's go ahead and change the port to 2212 instead of the default 22. And then we're going to scroll down here a bit. And under authentication here, we're going to change permit root login to no. So nobody's going to be able to log in as root. We're going to scroll down a bit here as well. And we're going to add a line that says allow users. And this is going to take basically a list of usernames of users who are allowed to log in through SSH. So I'm going to make my user account able to log in through SSH, and this is going to restrict all other users from connecting to this machine via SSH. So I'm going to save it and exit. I'm going to clear this a bit. And then what we need to do is restart the SSH service. So run sudo system control restart SSH. And you're good to go. And so now if I were on a different machine here, actually, let's see if I can get my external IP address here. I don't think I can get it through here. No. All right, let's clear this. I'm gonna open up network-tools. I'm gonna do something like if you guys have seen the movie Inception, this concept that I'm about to do will feel a little bit familiar to you. This, by the way, when you go to network-tools.com, the IP address that pops into this input field by default is your external, your public-facing IP address. This is the IP address that your internet service provider gives to you. Now, actually, in order for this to work, this would have to be the only machine, or I would have to set up through the router DMOS port forwarding or a host forwarding. But what we can try, we're going to try it anyway. I'm going to SSH into my pointy bracket server. And then from here I'm going to SSH into this machine. If it'll let me, it probably won't forward that port. So I would have to go through my router at this point to configure port forwarding for that port 2212 in order to be able to connect from an external host to this host. If you only have one machine plug, so basically, like the IP address of my server, when I go to the IP address, it goes directly to my server. It's not configured through NAT addresses. My server actually has 5 IP addresses, and those IP addresses go directly to my server, and that's why I can access SSH on that server without having to configure any routers or anything. I think actually the server provider managed that in some way. So Anyway, if I were to go into my router and configure DMOS or port forwarding, what I was just doing would in fact work. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys again soon. Hey guys, welcome back. So this is the actual last video of this course, and I'm doing it because I realized that I didn't cover this command when I had meant to in previous videos. And so this command is going to help you find information about all the different flags that you can use for different programs and different options that you can pass it, as well as just general information about a program. And so the command we're covering is called man. So you just type that into terminal and then the program that you want information about. So for instance, if I wanted more information about the SSH command, I would type man space SSH. And this is going to show a manual page about this SSH program. And so you can see in Synopsys, it kind of it shows you examples of flags that you can pass it. It has a description, and then it also has detailed information about each flag or option that you can pass through the command here, and you can just hit Q to quit that. So if I wanted to, for example, look up Chromium browser in the man pages, I would do that and it would load up this. You can actually launch Chromium browser with a lot of different options as well. And so this command here is going to help you guys out. There's a lot of times when people ask for help, and the help that they need was right there on the computer the entire time, but they just either they didn't know about it or they just didn't think about checking the man page. And so that's why I wanted to let you guys know this. This is one of the best forms of assistance that you're going to get for Ubuntu or any other Linux distribution that has man installed as well. So that's what I wanted to go over in this video. If you're confused with any commands or you want to know how far you can take that command, for instance, I'm going to type man nmap. And here it's going to give a description. You can really learn a lot about programs here. And here it's going to give you examples of how you can run the command. And it also gives you an entire list of all the options that you can pass to this command as well. And so I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate you guys and let you know how awesome this experience has been for me as well. I'm so happy to be able to share my knowledge about Ubuntu Linux with you guys and help you guys take that first step towards becoming a Linux master. We've covered a lot of command line utilities in this program that you guys are going to probably find really helpful later on. If you guys are going into Linux administration career paths, hopefully this is the stepping stone that you can use to propel you into Linux even deeper. There's a lot more when it comes to Linux. This has been over 7 hours of content, but in that over 7 hours of content, we've only been able to really scratch the surface on Linux, and so I hope you guys can use this to move forward. And so thank you guys so much for joining me. Hopefully I will see you guys again soon in maybe another course.